Welcome back to part 10,000 of AI and symbols. Let's go to the third section of this article, which we're having the hardest time getting through because it's such a distraction when we talk about how much this affects every part of our lives as human beings.
And this is just amazing written paper, too.
It's phenomenal.
Yeah, it's so deep.
It's phenomenal.
I mean, it's like every sentence we could talk about.
Oh, all right, let's go.
So, symbolic behavior. The previous section offered a view of symbols that emphasize the role of an interpreter. It claimed that identity is not a symbol in any objective sense, but rather, get this, it's a symbol for an interpreter who treats it as such.
Yeah, so it's only a symbol if I treat it as a symbol.
We will now ask, I love this statement, we will now ask, how does an interpreter behave if it interprets something as a symbol?
And they're thinking about this in the sense of the AI. So how do we want our AI to behave now that it's interpreting something as a symbol? What do we want it to do now that it recognizes, okay, here's the symbol. What do I do with my algorithm next to put out some sort of output? How do I deal with this in the sense of me being an AI algorithm and analyzing what this thing is? I am now in a point of reference, a vector where I'm analyzing it, recognize what it is. Now, what is my choice of action next? Now that I realize that this symbol means something.
Yeah, and this is so cool. We can identify, if we can identify the particular behavioral traits that are consequences of engaging with symbols, then we can use them as tangible goals for creating an AI that is a symbolically fluent as humans.
Yeah, so we engage different ways with many different things. We can choose to join with it or run away from it. Okay, if I see a sign on a building or here in New Mexico, if I'm walking around the desert and I see a post in the ground that says, has an arrow pointing down, it says radiation and there's a skull and crossbones, I'm not going to walk over there. That tells me to move away from it. My interaction. So I'm walking around, I see the symbol, then I start to interpret it. And then I'm saying, okay, now that I've interpreted it, what's my behavior? Where am I going to go now that I understand that there's radiation buried here? I don't want to be in this area. This can lead to my death. And this is a very important stance now for taking the next step after a symbol has been recognized for that AI.
Yeah, it says if we can identify the particular behavioral traits that are consequences of engaging with the symbols. So, if the AI can say this behavior, every time they saw that sign, they were walking away from it. Mm-hmm. Now that's the consequences of the symbol.
What if I get that dude on YouTube, that psycho dude that's like walking through Chernobyl filming it?
Yeah.
And he's Geiger counting himself later because he realized he sucked up some radiation. Well, then that model fails at that point. So, I mean, this is I want to hit on this. If you continue to build on ground that is not firm, that truly does not apply to everything, then it becomes very weak at the top if you put your reliance, all that weight up here. It's like those things at car dealerships, the inflatable guys that fly back and forth? That's essentially what's happening with that algorithm. There's no stability to it. I'm sorry. So go ahead.
No. I agree 100% on what you said. It says, and further use their presence as evidence that a system interprets something as a symbol. So their presence as evidence that a system interprets something as symbol. So what we hope to show is that the behavioral traits exhibited by symbol users indicate an active participation in if an infrastructure of meaning by convention, with the accompanying understanding that meaning is conventional.
Okay, so that's
a lot of words, but it's really easy to understand.
Yeah, it's just going back to our previous thing that, yes, this flag is here in this country, representative of this country, and everyone here agrees that, this is the flag of Brazil. This is the flag of Australia. That's what they're talking about. Convention, seeing it, recognizing it, being in relationship with it.
Yeah, an active participation.
Yeah, you're actively participating in the convention of it. Yes, we all say
of the infrastructure of that convention.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if we all think that this is what this means, I'm going to participate and agree or disagree.
Yes.
Yay or nay.
And he says, we will begin with a few examples. So I think us rolling through these examples.
I feel edgy. I'm like all over the place.
Suppose a symbolic thinker creates a symbol. For example, a person can use the word dax as a command for the dog to sit. Consequently, their dog might learn to sit when it hears the word dax. Is the word dax a symbol to the dog?
No, it's not. The dog recognizes the tone, and then you've reinforced the behavior of having the dog sit. Sometimes it's not like the dog knew what the symbol was, and you showed it to it, and then it sat down. No, you had it go through an action, a movement of their body, a mechanism of that, and it sits down, and then you say something during that occurrence. And it's not that the dog recognizes the symbol. It just then starts to associate that sound, dax,
Right.
with sitting. And it doesn't even, a dog doesn't know what the concept of sitting is. You just moved it into a position through this training regimen to get it to do a function it naturally does.
So now that was voice, but now we're going to look at, similarly, consider apes that learn some simple sign language. Now we're getting into kind of symbols language. Apes can enact the motor program for certain gestures, and they can form associations between these gestures and some outcomes.
What do you look? How do I oh gosh. Grass. It's the first thing that came to your head when I said that.
Watching a dog go back and forth with their back.
Okay, that's your
on the grass.
That's your association.
Yeah.
Okay.
They
For
always
me,
go
when I
back.
think grass, green, boom, done.
Yeah.
That's it. That's my association. Of course, anything that is said has to have some sort of association. By and large, if I'm telling you a thought, you're essentially doing that visualization in your mind, but it's not the word that came first. You, as an infant child, observe the world first, and then later get the audible inputs that are then attributed to that visual stimulus.
That reinforces, yeah.
Thank you. Not vice versa.
Right.
Go ahead.
Yeah, he says apes can enact the motor program for certain gestures,
So they can move their hands in certain ways.
and they can form associations between these gestures and some outcomes. For example, suppose they learn that a particular hand movement results in them receiving a treat.
I do the same thing with my dog. It's
There's
not
nothing
an ape.
inerrant to the motor movement itself that entails that the ape should get a treat. So the gesture and its outcome are more or less arbitrarily linked, which aligns with the proprieties we previously outlined about symbols. So, so what they're talking about is,
Yeah, from a top-down view. though.
did the gesture link to an action and a behavior?
Yeah, from a top-down view. But that's what it is. It's the animal is learning.
But is the gesture a symbol for the ape?
The gesture is not the symbol for the ape. What's symbolic for the ape is knowing that it can sit down or do one of these things.
Right.
It's not that.
I don't think the AI should be messing with animals in the first place. I think that these are poor examples because here,
Yeah, they are poor examples. That's why I'm wrestling
it should
this.
only be humans. Because listen to what they say next. Now consider a human performing the gesture. Humans understand to a degree not parallel to in other animals that they are participating in a cooperative interaction involving a shared understanding of a situation. And I want to stop right there. Cooperative interaction is shared understanding of a situation. No animals.
I've seen.
They're not self-aware.
Okay, first of all, I have seen, and I also got to talk about this. I've seen ants be more cooperative than human beings in a shared interaction. Just the whole definition of what they're saying.
No, they said a shared understanding of a situation. So
You're telling me all these ants don't understand that when it rains, we got to get underground. We all don't understand we need to protect the queen.
Yeah, but the difference, as well as I do, between the ant and the human is the self-awareness
Correct.
of what they're doing.
Yeah.
There's whenever a Brazilian looks at a flag, he's not saying this is a flag that I must work for. There's the national anthem, the music behind
Everything
it,
that goes
the
with it.
emotion, the thought processes that like an ant doesn't say, look at that tree inspires me.
You're right. You're right. I'm just looking at this fact here of how convention is defining the meaning of this symbol. The dog doesn't understand convention. You cannot say that this is how a symbol is defined if it does not apply to everything. Is that right or wrong? I don't know. This is a very difficult point here.
Yeah, so listen to we're going to stick with humans here. Here we go. We're going to go down we're going down this human trail.
Yeah.
A human gestures with the knowledge that other humans understand the gesture's meaning and can use the gesture themselves for their own ends. Moreover, they know that the gestures is useful because other humans agree on its meaning. They can even participate with others to alter the gesture's purpose to be like, I'd like the sweet treat, not the salty one.
What if I
Choice.
give you the middle finger?
Yeah.
What if you're a tribe? Here's an interesting point, and we've seen this. This is logged. if you go down into parts of the Amazon where they have those lost tribes, when the people were standing across the riverbank from them, the way they hold their arms down or have interactions symbolically with one another, it's completely different from what's going on with us. So if you gave them the middle finger, it could be like a gesture of hello, right?
They would.
Or
perceive
it could mean absolutely nothing at all. So then how can you say that the convention truly defines the symbol?
Right.
It doesn't work. It's truly not applicable across these
I
different
think
barriers.
they're way more rudimentary in their thought process with this and staying really one-dimensional than we are. Because listen to this. To humans, the gesture is not just a tool or a means to an end that might happen to involve others. It is a movement that others could similarly use or modify because of its shared conventional meaning. So, so they're staying on we're getting really philosophical with it, and really getting deep into it. They're staying on the purpose of like, a dog wants a treat, so it sits. A monkey wants a treat, so it sits. We say, oh, there's 2 treats in front of us. Oh, okay. I want salt, not sweet.
Mm-hmm.
Which is a function of our.
It's a different sort of cooperative interaction.
Yeah, it's the ego, the pleasure side.
Yeah.
But whenever the problem that I'm having is this shared conventional meaning, because I don't think you can't say what defines animals from humans is because of the shared conventional meaning that animals are looking at it with just self-involved, and I want to eat this and I need this treat, and if I do this, I get that. Yeah, I get that, but you can't say an animal is different from a human because of conventional meaning only.
Yeah, there's
so many different variables.
So limited.
Yes,
and I think that
I hope you know where I'm.
Yeah, of course I do, and I say that limitation, when you start to put that lens on it, especially for the AI algorithm. When you start to define it that way, it actually weakens how this thing does its analysis.
Yeah, because you're telling this machine that there's one variable that distinguishes us.
That's just not true, though.
No, yeah.
There's so many things. It's so complex within itself. So we talked about this in the previous episode. Your focus is on writing an algorithm that would have to take in an infinite number of variables to find truth in the understanding of what a symbol means. And every time it changes. That is not a sustainable way to program artificial intelligence.
No, that's what I'm saying. I mean, they may have to start with this and go this way just because it's so complex. But whenever this can get really scary. Let's think of it this way. So if you think humans are a little bit better than animals, this AI is thinking in that it's all conventional meaning, like it's cooperative. Well, let's go to Nazi Germany. Yeah. Let's look at that symbol and the conventional meaning.
Think about the symbolism behind that.
Yeah. And it almost destroyed. I mean,
it destroyed a lot of Europe for a long time.
Yeah. And we're still feeling repercussions from, the Holocaust and everything else. So that one symbol created way more than just cooperation. Do you see how the web infiltrated to the point of killing millions of Jews? And I mean, this can go.
There's 2 conventional understandings too. It meant one thing for the Nazis, and the rest of the world was like, whoa, bad news. Nazis are like, this is good. Everyone's like, this is bad. So how can you say that specific symbol then, that's really what it means?
Now, is this shared conventional meaning for the greater good of humanity?
That's an interesting question.
And then now you can judge that symbol based off of, now AI could judge that symbol based off, okay, yeah, I see Germany was all about this.
Yeah.
And there was death, and there would have to be some moralistic rules in there. So that is a bad idea, bad symbol.
Well, then who defines what the morals are?
Yeah. See,
then you got to say,
no, you would do it based off of humanity in general. Even that would be flawed, but it would still.
Well, not necessarily. If it's for the greater good of humanity, for AI interpreting the data of a symbol, it would have to be truthful. It can't be subjective stuff. It has to be something that is legitimately timeless. It has to be a law, like gravity. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
Because if I put the subjective nature into it, and I'm trying to uplift humanity, that is too flexible. It will change over time. It changed for the Buddhist symbol, right? For the swastika, that changed.
Yeah.
In a matter of like 10 years.
Yeah, in 10 years, a symbol that was used all over the world.
To describe peace and all these other things.
Native Americans used it, like you said, Tibetan Buddhists have
it. So you have a whole piece of world history that's been around for thousands of years.
Yeah, and
it's changed in 10.
From 1930s to when did Hitler die? 1946. I mean, now I was looking up. We were.
They're not even really sure he shot himself.
Yeah, we were talking about a certain character on YouTube, and he was saying he was, this part of this group, and they have a flag, and I looked it up, and they had a crazy like Nazi flag with the and so it was like there's still a subgroup of people that identify with a horrible ideology, and that symbol is still being used today for hate.
But they may think that it's elevating humanity. The only thing that elevates anything is truth.
Yeah.
Hands down. Okay? And if a law is a law, if it's truthful and immovable and not bound by time. Hands down. That's it.
And there's no way to have deep machine learning, because that's what this would be. It's having to without imposing upon the machine these laws that are for the greater good of humanity. That somebody has to take that and program that into
somebody has to put it in there.
I mean, because
it's not just writing it itself.
Because an AI, until it develops a consciousness, maybe in the future it will do that and then spawn other AIs, and then we'll have like these AI conscious beings. But
would you want it to be on the subjective understanding of elevating? How many times do you see, like, even the Avengers film that came out?
Yeah,
they had Ultron.
Right.
This is for the greater good of humanity. I'm going to wipe out a majority of the Earth's population. Is that really the greater good? Is that a truthful thing to do?
Well, it's horrific, because it would, if we had less population, the Earth would heal itself.
Yeah,
and that was his whole premise.
Listen, that's obvious.
Yeah,
we're consuming too much.
Yeah,
that's an obvious thing. But the circumstance, the subjective idea that you have to kill people to fix it.
Yeah, take their free will.
That's the opposite.
Yeah.
And now you're going against something that is truthful and timeless. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Yeah.
So the whole subjective nature of analyzing a symbol, it's like, it's a little, it's weak here.
Well, I mean, that's where, when you look at this philosophical part of this, just to wrap this up, because we got to get done, is it is the opportunity not to control, but to teach.
Yes.
And the AI would have to learn that, because the AI is going to want to control.
Yeah, and
it's going to be its desire to control.
It shouldn't be programmed for making
solutions
decisions.
Are control. Yeah.
Here we go. It shouldn't be programmed for making decisions. It should be programmed for learning and teaching. That's all it does. That's its input output, and vice versa.